Thank you very much for having me at this highly interesting discussion. And I would like to stress right from the beginning that the focus of my research and consulting work lies in geopolitics and realpolitik, which is why I will present some ideas about the role of artificial intelligence from a geopolitical point of view, not from the legal or from the technical point of view. And I do, of course, consider that artificial intelligence is going to play a key role in this systemic rivalry that we have been witnessing for at least the last decade, but most of the so-called political pundits have been either overlooking or neglecting in their analysis. Now, let me start first and foremost with a few key points to understand my main arguments, the basis of my research and my trends analysis. First and foremost, I do not offer any predictions. I do not offer also any forecasts. I base my analysis solely on strategic foresight and trends and the evaluation of certain trends directions. So the first main point I want to make is that the global system, that means the global affairs, have merged into something that I call now a global system, which has never been so interconnected as it is right now. Why? Because for the very first time since the last 30 years, and I argue that this has been an actually unforeseen consequence following the collapse of the Soviet Union, the global affairs have merged into something that has become a global capitalist system. The majority of the countries in the world, and we might, of course, we may argue what kind of market economy they really pursue. However, the majority of the countries are now facilitated within the so-called capitalist system. So that means the anti-capitalist model as such, which was being pushed by the Soviet Union, failed with the collapse of the one superpower. So that is the first important point before I start making the point on the role of artificial intelligence. The second one is that the global affairs are currently at an inflection point, and the unexpected manifestation of the COVID-19 outbreak actually is the real bifurcation of this global system, something that nobody could imagine to discuss 10 years ago. Or you may agree with me that the majority, at least, of international experts did not have the point of bifurcation of the global system as a matter of research or discussion. So it begs the question, of course, is the world witnessing the beginning of a new and, of course, different bipolar era of global system competition? And I will spare you all the arguments by directly answering or delivering my personal answer based on my research and observation from the last at least 15 years, and that is yes. Why yes? If we carefully look at four particular domains: political economy, technology, and fourth industrial revolution, rules, norms, and ideology, and the fourth one, partnerships and alliances, derived from these four main domains, we can actually agree that kind of a systemic competition has begun at the top of this global capitalist system between the United States and China. So, as you can imagine, today's discussion, and specifically my participation, is not dedicated to this question and to these four domains. I want to particularly focus on the question of technology, the domain of technology, and look carefully at the role of artificial intelligence. The Global Artificial Intelligence Index per 2021 places United States and China first and second respectively in a list of 62 countries based on the examination of the forces accelerating AI development through three pillars of analysis: investment, innovation, and implementation. So once again, two powers are in fact already engaged in a fierce technological arms race, with artificial intelligence being not just another technology, but in the words of Professor Pedro Domingos, the next stage of technology itself. So the power that will dominate the artificial intelligence is also likely to dominate global affairs in the technological domain, and from there, of course, the domain of economics and military. Artificial intelligence fascinates many, but few are really concerned with the potential geopolitical implications for the future of the global order. So in his latest book, Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Power, 5 Battle Groups, the author Rajiv Malhotra argues that the new AI-based power centers are located firmly in the United States and China. He also outlines the struggle for world domination based on AI-driven technological breakthroughs as follow, and I quote, "A new era of colonization, namely digital colonization, is already underway. The associated economic, social, and political effects will devastate other countries, which will be relegated to the status of colonies or satellites. Which country will emerge victorious from the ongoing fourth industrial revolution is yet to be seen." We don't know the winner of this competition, but I can assure you that the winner or the victor of this competition in the technological domain will certainly assert its dominance over both competitors and allies in the future by setting also the new norms and rules in global affairs. And this is exactly the topic of our discussion today. So logically, there can be only one winner in such a decisive competition. If we look back to the history of the third industrial revolution and the previous ones, we see how exactly this has been the case. The victor, the power that could actually ride the wave of technological breakthroughs, was also the power that became dominant in global affairs afterwards. So logically, as I said, there can be only one winner in this decisive competition over artificial intelligence. Once again, attempting to achieve dominance during the fourth industrial revolution will require a quest for increased self-sufficiency in artificial intelligence, but also in other critical technologies, and of course, global supply chains. And in fact, the Indo-Pacific region is the realm where geoeconomics and geopolitics meet. So in a sense, we are already witnessing the emergence of the Indo-Pacific, some say even century, which of course is probably a little bit too overstretched, but in a sense it was already pointed out that the global power competition, the struggle for power, is definitely going to take place in this region. And technology, including artificial intelligence, will be decisive for the outcome of this specific power competition in the region. And from there, of course, with the projection and the concrete effects on the future of the global order. So, of course, I suppose that the Indo-Pacific region has been already defined as a realm by previous speakers from the previous sessions. So I don't need to go into details what exactly is meant under the Indo-Pacific. Artificial intelligence is the engine that is driving the global power struggle based on the myriad technological breakthroughs that will shake the foundations of states and societies. And of course, one may apply a broader term of AI. For instance, Rajiv Malhotra describes AI as encompassing the entire ecosystem of technologies that AI propels forward as their force multiplier. This cluster includes quantum computing, semiconductors, nanotechnologies, medical technology, brain-machine interfaces, robotics, aerospace, 5G, and much more. Obviously, technological supremacy is the sine qua non of world domination, as the 19th and the 20th century have taught us from a geopolitical point of view. In my anticipation for the future, and specifically for this Indo-Pacific decade, is that sectors such as space technologies, increasingly, of course, technologies linked to artificial intelligence, and that means specifically in the field of defense and cyber capabilities, can expect strategic investments to promote the growth of new regional power centers. And we should not neglect the importance of middle-sized powers in this growing systemic competition between the United States and China. This is also important since any significant breakthrough in these areas will bestow competitiveness and geo-economic advantages. Further, as I mentioned at the beginning, the unprecedented interconnectedness of all these socio-economic systems, the networks that have been more or less controlled and facilitated by the United States over the last 70 years, and then merged into something much bigger, much more interconnected following the collapse of the Soviet Union, that I name as a global capitalist system, so this kind of unprecedented interconnectedness has obfuscated the distinction between economic and trade indicators on the one side and defense and security considerations on the other. This explains why the competition between Washington and Beijing does not solely represent a trade war or an economic competition, but it actually already encompasses a broader rivalry extending to all relevant global networks of finance, trade, economy, diplomacy, energy, defense, and so forth. And technology is going to be at the core of this competition. So definitely digital technologies, specifically dominated by artificial intelligence, but also data science, will undoubtedly lead to expected but also unanticipated technological breakthroughs in various domains of the global commons. Some of these global commons have been already mentioned by the previous speaker, but also certainly in the previous sessions. So concurrently, the actual use of these tools raises a number of ethical, legal, societal questions, which are tackled completely differently by the United States and China, but also by, respectively, by allies and partners of these competitors. The transformation of digital technologies could lead to the creation of permanent surveillance societies in which all data collection and storage is under state control. In this respect, China can play a decisive role model function for future authoritarian regimes in other parts of the world if China manages to ride the wave of these fourth industrial revolutions and becomes victorious in this particular technological domain. The famous political scientist Andrew Michter argues that we must recognize that we are in fact facing not China as a civilization, but rather as a communist power whose ideology has always been at its core totalitarian. And what is unfolding before our eyes and has been underway for 3 decades since the end of the Cold War is, in fact, a second and possibly decisive final stage of conflict between liberal democracy and communism. And once again, we see that the outcome of the technological competition is going to have a direct effect on the competition in other domains, be it in the domain of rules and norms, or be it in the domain of alliances and partnerships. And we've heard also already about ad hoc geopolitical formations or the reemergence of geopolitical formations in the Indo-Pacific region, such as the quadrilateral format, but also the emergence of AUKUS. The European Union also launched a strategy on the Indo-Pacific, where the topic of the artificial intelligence is definitely present and is going to also shape the agenda and the future relations of like-minded partners that seek to create a counterweight to the Chinese presence and influence in this region and beyond. And of course, India will play a key role in the geopolitics of technologies due to several factors. The country represents the largest open data market in the world with the highest per capita consumption of data. India is working on a personal data protection bill, has been invited by the G20 to sign the data free flow with trust. The Asian giant will also seek to improve its AI infrastructure, and it's counting on strategies and also investments coming from the United States, but meanwhile also from the European Union and European powers in order to expand its technological reach to address challenges to its territorial and cyber integrity. New Delhi is seen also as an indispensable member of recent multilateral efforts around AI. So it's not only bilateral, but it's also multilateral approach, which seeks to kind of forge forces in this particular domain. There are several major developments, such as the establishment of the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence. Other coalitions includes also India. And it is obvious that to prevent this kind of digital colonization, the most plausible scenario for the future would be for the United States to work closely and to cooperate with like-minded partners. And India is definitely one of these partners. The European Union and the European powers is another such example. The Quad members, the AUKUS members, they all will join forces, even though that probably the approaches will be not necessarily identical, but they will all join forces and coordinate different actions and measures in this domain.
Please try to conclude, ma'am.
That is my last sentence.
Okay.
To actually build a serious and significant counterweight to the Chinese agenda, and obviously the main expectation is that China seeks to become the global superpower in this domain.